Walmart's supply chain intelligence updates inventory weeks before products disappear from shelves. These 11 canned foods are already showing the supply pressure signals that precede a shelf gap, and August 1st is 10 days away. This is what to buy before that window closes. Number 1. Canned corned beef. Canned corned beef from brands including Libby's and Hereford is the canned protein item most directly exposed to the structural beef supply crisis that the USDA has been documenting since 2023. The U.S. cattle herd entered this year at its smallest size since 1951, and the canning and processing operations that produce corned beef compete for raw material against the fresh beef supply chain that has already seen retail prices rise significantly. When beef becomes scarce and expensive at the commodity level, the margins on canned corned beef compress to the point where some processors reduce production rather than absorb the cost. And the retail effect is reduced shelf allocations and fewer units reaching stores before restocking cycles can fill the gap. Libby's corned beef specifically has seen intermittent availability issues at multiple Walmart regions in recent months as this dynamic plays out at the processor level. Number 2. Canned chunk white chicken. Canned chunk white chicken in the 12-ounce Swanson format and similar store brand equivalents is the product most directly affected by the recurring avian influenza outbreaks that the USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service has confirmed are now endemic to commercial poultry operations. Each outbreak wave requires culling infected flocks and rebuilding through a replacement cycle that takes 6 to 12 months, creating periodic supply compression that flows into the canned chicken market on a lag of several months from the initial flock reduction. The combination of reduced raw material availability and rising processing costs is already producing a noticeable tightening in canned chicken shelf inventory at major retailers, and the smaller size and lighter weight of chicken-based canned products compared to beef makes them particularly vulnerable to retailer decisions to reduce SKU counts when facing allocation constraints. Adding extra cans of whatever chicken format is on your normal rotation during each grocery trip for the next few weeks builds a reliable buffer against periodic avian flu-driven supply tightening. Number 3. Canned diced tomatoes. Canned diced tomatoes, crushed tomatoes, and whole peeled tomatoes are facing a supply situation driven by California's dominance in domestic tomato processing. California accounts for approximately 95% of the commercially processed tomatoes grown in the United States, according to USDA agricultural statistics, and the state's agricultural sector has faced multiple consecutive years of water allocation pressure, higher labor costs, and heat stress events that have reduced processing tomato yields below historical norms. The combination of reduced domestic supply and tariff impacts on imported tomato products from some traditional source countries has created upward price pressure that major retailers, including Walmart, have responded to by reducing variety rather than maintaining full selection at higher shelf prices. Store brand diced tomatoes are the first SKU to see shelf gap events when supply tightens because they carry the lowest margin and the least manufacturer support for maintaining retail presence. Number 4. Canned Alaskan salmon. Canned Alaskan pink salmon and sockeye salmon are facing supply pressure from two converging factors that are unlikely to resolve before the end of 2026. Pacific salmon populations in key commercial fishing zones have faced documented stock management challenges, with catch limits in some regions reduced significantly from historical levels by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration as part of fishery sustainability management. Simultaneously, import tariffs affecting some internationally processed salmon products have reduced the supply of cost-competitive canned salmon options that previously helped keep retail prices stable by supplementing domestic catch. The result is a narrowing of available brands and consizes on retail shelves as processors work through reduced raw material supply, with shelf gaps most visible in the premium wild-caught varieties that have seen the most significant supply reduction. Wild Planet and Bumblebee have been more consistently maintaining inventory than store brand salmon at most Walmart locations, making the name brand the more reliable purchase for stockpiling right now. Number 5. Canned Albacore tuna. Canned albacore tuna, in particular, as distinct from the cheaper light tuna products, faces supply pressure from the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission's catch limit adjustments implemented to address stock sustainability concerns in the primary commercial albacore fishing zones. Albacore tuna is the basis for the premium chunk white tuna products that most consumers associate with quality canned tuna, and catch limit reductions take roughly 12 to 18 months to flow through processing inventories and reach retail shelf pricing and availability. Multiple major canned tuna processors have publicly communicated to retail buyers that albacore supply will be constrained through the remainder of 2026. And Walmart's category buyers have already begun consolidating shelf space around the highest velocity SKUs, rather than maintaining the full brand and size variety that the canned tuna section has historically offered. The practical response is to prioritize albacore over light tuna on each shopping trip, since light tuna faces less immediate supply pressure and will remain available even as albacore tightens. Number 6, canned whole kernel sweet corn. Canned whole kernel corn from major brands including Del Monte, Green Giant, and store labels is facing supply pressure from drought conditions across the Midwest Corn Belt that have reduced processing tomato yield projections for the 2026 season. While corn itself is not in shortage at the commodity level, the specific processing tomato sweet corn varieties grown for canning represent a separate and distinct agricultural production category from commodity field corn, and the sweet corn acreage planted for processing has been declining as farmers shift to higher margin alternatives, where irrigation costs make the economics of sweet corn processing more challenging. Several smaller regional canning operations that produced store-label sweet corn for major retailers have reduced production capacity, and the supply gap they leave is not being fully absorbed by the larger national brands. Green Giant and Del Monte name brand sweet corn have been more consistently available than store brands at most Walmart locations, making them the safer choice for building reliable supply. Number 7, canned green beans. Canned green beans are one of the most widely purchased canned vegetables in the United States, and their shelf stability has historically made them a reliable, low-cost pantry staple available in virtually unlimited quantity at any Walmart location. Contracted processing operations for canned green beans have faced labor cost increases and input cost inflation that have compressed margins to the point where some regional processors have chosen not to renew retail contracts for the 2026 pack season, and the volume they produced is not being fully replaced by other processors. The visible retail effect is shelf gaps in the largest pack sizes and the store brand varieties that depend on the most price-sensitive processing operations, while the name brand 12 and 15-ounce sizes remain more consistently available as those contracts carry higher margin and longer commitment terms. Adding a few extra cans of green beans to each grocery run, rather than attempting a single large purchase, is the more reliable approach given the shifting SKU availability pattern. Number 8, canned coconut milk. Canned coconut milk from the Southeast Asian processing base that supplies the overwhelming majority of global coconut milk production has faced a combination of currency-related cost increases and regional coconut crop pressures that have pushed import prices upward at a rate that is now beginning to show in retail pricing and reduced variety on Walmart shelves. The categories most affected are the larger format cans and the full-fat coconut milk products that carry narrower margins for importers at current price levels. Several Walmart regions have already reduced their canned coconut milk SKU count from 4 or 5 options to 2 or 3, with the remaining options skewed toward the higher margin organic and premium brands that support the margin needed to maintain shelf presence as import costs increase. Thai Kitchen is currently the most reliably available coconut milk brand at Walmart nationwide, and the full-fat 13.5-ounce size represents the best combination of value and current availability. Number 9, canned beef, stew, and ready-to-eat beef. Canned beef broth and canned ready-to-eat beef stew from brands including Dinty Moore are both downstream products of the same beef supply pressure affecting corned beef, And they face an additional challenge in that their processed format means they went through multiple production steps that each add cost before reaching the can. The USDA cattle herd data showing historically low herd sizes means that the raw material pressure on beef-based canned products will not resolve within any planning horizon relevant to a 2026 food storage decision. Dinty Moore beef stew specifically has seen visible availability challenges at some Walmart locations as the price of beef input material has made production at traditional retail price points economically difficult to maintain at historical production volumes. Treating Dinty Moore as an opportunistic purchase whenever it appears in stock is the more practical approach to building supply, given the inconsistent availability already visible at many Walmart locations. Number 10. Canned pumpkin puree. Canned pumpkin puree carries a supply chain risk that is unique on this list and that most shoppers have never thought about. Approximately 85% of the commercially canned pumpkin sold in the United States is processed by a single company, Libby's, at a single primary processing facility in Morton, Illinois. That concentration of processing capacity in a single facility means that any disruption to operations at that location, whether from equipment failure, labor issues, weather events, or supply chain problems affecting the facility's inputs, directly affects the availability of canned pumpkin across the entire U.S. retail market almost simultaneously. Walmart has historically managed this concentration risk through its own inventory planning, but in a market environment where commodity costs are rising and retailer inventory targets are being tightened, the buffer stock that typically absorbs processing disruptions is thinner than in previous years. Buying 4 to 6 extra cans of Libby's pumpkin per shopping trip through the end of summer builds a supply before fall seasonal demand further compresses the already strained availability. Number 11. Canned sardines. Canned sardines in the 3-ounce and 4-ounce sizes from brands including Season, King Oscar, and store labels are facing the tightest supply situation of any item on this list from an international commodity perspective. Global sardine catch data tracked by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations has shown declining sardine biomass in the Northeast Atlantic, which is the primary source of sardines for the European processing operations that supply a significant portion of the U.S. retail market. Catch quotas in the Morocco and Portugal fishing zones have been reduced to protect stock sustainability, and those reductions have cut the raw material available to the canning operations that process sardines for export to the United States. The result is higher import prices and reduced availability of the small format sardine products that are the most price sensitive and the most likely to see shelf gaps when supply tightens. Every one of these 11 items has documented supply pressure behind it. The window before August 1st is narrow. Buy what you need this week rather than assuming the shelf will look the same next week. Subscribe for the next video.